Hello, and welcome to FTA's Circular 5010 Award Management Requirements Training Series. I am Trina Trotman with the Office of Program Management. Our office designed this series to provide our recipients and stakeholders a better understanding of changes made to FTA's official guidance on award management requirements and other requirements that pertain to all FTA financial assistance. To ensure we are all on the same page, we want to remind everyone that this presentation does not have the force and effect of the law and is not intended to bind the public in any way. It is educational and informational in nature with an intent to explain some of our existing requirements under laws or agency policies. Now I would like to introduce Bruce Robinson to provide our welcoming remarks.
Hello, my name is Bruce Robinson, FTA's Associate Administrator for Program Management. On behalf of the team here at the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, I'm delighted to provide a brief introduction to the upcoming video training. FTA turned 60 years old this year, and one of our most exciting projects this year was updating several of FTA's major program circulars, as well as FTA's Award Management Requirement Circular, which is needed for all awards FTA administers. Over the last 2 years, staff worked tirelessly to update these circulars, working with headquarters and regional offices, as well as reaching out for public comment to update these documents. 4 circulars are Circular 5010, the Award Management Requirements Circular, Circular 9050, the Urbanized Area Formula Grant Program Guidance. This circular replaces, consolidates, and updates guidance for the Urbanized Area Formula Grant Program, the State of Good Repair Grant Program, and the Urbanized Area Formula component of the Grants of Buses and Bus Facilities Program. In addition, Circular 9040, the Rural Area Formula Grant Program Guidance, consolidates and updates guidance for the Buses and Bus Facilities Program that is rural, and the Formula Grants for Rural Area Program. Finally, Circular 97 is the Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program Guidance. As part of the updated circular release, FTA developed a video series for each circular to relay key information and highlight changes. Additionally, the team developed a number of materials to help work with grantees and help set the stage for understanding federal financial assistance requirements surrounding administering federal fund awards. This circular and training series is specifically designed to assist FTA's efforts to improving customer service and streamlining our processes, as well as reflecting and incorporating provisions from the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, or more commonly the FAST Act, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, as well as changes to the Uniform Administrative Requirements, Cost Principles, and Audit Requirements for Federal Awards, more commonly referred to as 2 CFR 200 or the Uniform Guidance, as well as incorporating changes to FTA's policies and procedures. We hope you find these videos informative. FTA has created a general email address for questions related to this update, FTA Circular Update 2024 at dot.gov, to assist in addressing questions regarding this release. For questions about information in the circulars, please reach out to your FTA regional contacts. But for now, please enjoy the show. Thank you.
Each Friday from October 18th through November 15th, 2024, FTA is posting a series of pre-recorded videos addressing summary grants management information and highlighting changes made in each of the revised circulars, including our Award Management Requirements Circular and each of our Formula Program Circulars. With this video, our series on Circular 5010 Award Management Requirements comes to an end. The Circular 5010 Award Management Requirements Training builds upon the foundation we established in the previous Summary of Grants Management series and prepares us for the next set of presentations that will roll out for the program circulars. The 5010 series was developed to highlight many of the structural and substantive changes made to the Award Management Requirements Circular to help users navigate and better understand the circular as an administrative guidance tool. The illustration on the right outlines topics for the sessions in this series. The route ahead is our agenda. For session 3, we will look primarily at post-award actions, including required reports, changes to the award, property, including real and personal property requirements, oversight, and closeout. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our speakers, Heather Smith and Jay Lindsay from the Office of Program Management. Heather and Jay are both members of my staff who work with Circular 5010 and its use as a guidance tool on a daily basis. To start us off, I will turn it over to Heather.
Thank you so much, Trina. Let's start off by reviewing the reporting requirements included in Chapter 3 of Circular 5010. Since the bulk of the awards activities take place post-award, FTA, like all federal agencies, monitors recipient progress. FTA utilizes a risk-based approach to reporting dependent upon the recipient's size, past performance, experience, and the amount of federal assistance. In terms of 5010's updates, multiple areas of reporting were impacted, but it is important to note that the FFR, Federal Financial Report, and MPR, Milestone Progress Reports, are required for every award. Also, all recipients are required to notify FTA immediately when there is a significant event that impacts the schedule, cost, capacity, usefulness, or purpose of the award. Even with this notification, recipients are still required to include this information in the MPR. Additional reporting requirements are specific to the type of award or award components, including transit asset management, often called TAM, and real property. 2 CFR 200.328, federal agencies are required to collect financial reports at least annually. This is done through the FFR. FTA uses the FFR to provide a current, complete, and accurate financial picture of the award based on the last approved budget for the reporting period. A recipient must submit an FFR for each active award based on the reporting schedule established in TRAMS. TRAMS creates a task for recipients to complete the FFR as well as the MPR. The circular now provides more detailed information and guidance regarding the FFR, and particularly highlights indirect cost information. As noted in a previous session, indirect costs have become increasingly used in FTA awards, and our guidance now reflects key reporting elements, such as the indirect cost rate type, rate specifics, the amount of funds used as the base to calculate the rate, and the federal share of the calculated indirect costs. FTA uses the FFR and the MPR together to gauge progress on the award's scope of work and spending. The MPR tracks what is occurring in the award, and the FFR tracks what is being spent. So together, there is a broader picture of the award status. The MPR is the primary written communication between the recipient and FTA, and the information provided in the MPR should be as complete as possible, highlighting progress towards project objectives and any potential problem areas. These reports share the same reporting schedule. The MPR includes narrative and milestone status updates based on the ALIs included in the award. Recipients should discuss, through their narratives, the status of the award, as well as any analysis regarding delays or cost variance. So let's take a minute to review some of the other types of reports outlined in 5010. FSRS reporting. Under the Federal Funding, Accountability, and Transparency Act, FFATA, Subaward and Executive Compensation Reporting Requirement, recipients of new federal assistance awards greater than or equal to $30,000 must report this information in FSRS, FFATA Subaward Reporting System. Then there's civil rights reports. Those are a prerequisite for receiving FTA federal assistance. Title VI reports. Title VI prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance. On a triennial basis, recipients must submit a report of compliance. Then we have the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, or DBE program. All FTA recipients receiving planning, capital and/or operating assistance must maintain a DBE program as outlined in 49 CFR 26.1A2. Equal Opportunity Employment, EEO. Recipients covered under the most recent edition of FTA Circular 4704.1, which addresses EEO workplace requirements, must submit reports on their compliance every 4 years. Then we have National Transit Database, or NTD, reporting. A recipient or subrecipient of FTA federal assistance is required to report to the NTD a complete report of all transit operations, regardless of whether those operations are or are not financed in whole or in part by the FTA. Then there's quarterly reports for major capital construction projects. Recipients must submit a quarterly project budget and project schedule. There are some reporting resources, and you can see these websites listed. Now we are changing from reporting to post-award modifications, which are also outlined in Chapter 3 of Circular 5010. Usual for an award to need to be modified. There are 3 ways to modify an FTA award, which are through a recipient-initiated amendment, an administrative amendment that FTA creates, or through a budget revision. The recipient is responsible for managing and monitoring activities and approaching FTA about the award scope of work or budget that needs to be changed. When a modification is necessary, FTA determines if the changes are acceptable and may suggest a different course of action than what the recipient proposes. Appendix C was added to 5010 under this revision to capture common post-award modifications and relay requirements in a simplified manner. It is a compilation of guidance previously provided across the program circulars and provides clarification for common post-award changes. The enhanced guidance also outlines when prior approval from FTA is necessary, and more information on when either a budget revision, administrative amendment, or amendment is appropriate. When it is time to change the award, planning and coordination is key. To determine how to approach FTA with a request, it might be useful to think about the scope of the change. Is it big or is it small? Amendments are big changes. An amendment is required when there is either a change in the scope of work or when the amount of a federal award is changed with the addition or subtraction of funds. At FTA, amendments require the same application requirements as a new award and follow the same path and trams. Recipients should consult with FTA to ensure compliance and how the changes may affect other awards, including if the changes are significant enough to require additional milestones or schedule adjustments to one or more projects. Administrative amendments may be considered quote-unquote small if we continue with the analogy. Administrative amendments are FTA initiated and only used when there is no change to the scope of work, amount, or purpose of the award. FTA typically uses administrative amendments to clarify or adjust administrative concerns post-award. Revisions are small. They are typically minor revisions to the award. Budget revisions may be made if there is no change to the purpose or the scope of the award and no change to the type and/or amount of federal assistance awarded. Budget revisions must be consistent with the activities in an approved TIP and STIP, NEPA determinations, and related planning and prerequisite requirements. Even though budget revisions do not follow the same workflow as an amendment, there are times when budget revisions may be sent to the DOL for informational purposes, but the labor protection arrangements for the original award apply to modifications without further DOL certification. Appendix C offers some clarity for common post-award changes, but FTA regional offices should be contacted to ensure compliance with requirements and obtaining any necessary prior approvals. Post-award modifications are electronically submitted, reviewed, and approved in TRAMS using one of these three methods to ensure the recipient can seek reimbursement consistent with the newly approved changes to the award budget. Post-award modifications must be reviewed to ensure consistency with legislative and programmatic requirements, including any time limits associated with the funding or legislation, NOFO and competitive requirements, as well as related civil rights, environmental, and workforce considerations. The following are times when FTA prior approval is required. Changing the federal share of an existing ALI, additional federal funds are needed to complete the project, the revision results from changes in the scope of work or the objective of the project or program. A revision involves specific costs for which prior written approval is required in accordance with applicable OMB cost principles. The federal assistance source is the same and is transferred between ALIs within each project or across the projects with different federal matching ratios. The addition of an ALI to an existing scope of work approved for the award, provided that the request does not change the source or amount of federal assistance originally awarded, or change the scope of work of the award and its projects. For equipment, when the federal share of the award exceeds the simplified acquisition threshold, which is $250,000 at the time of publication of the circular, and the cumulative amount of change exceeds 20% from the latest budget approved by the FTA. Any change within an approved scope of work requires that the recipient affirm in its request for a revision to an award budget that the new activity is consistent with the approved TIP, if applicable, and STIP, and, if applicable, has satisfied NEPA requirements. There are instances where prior approval is required under 2 CFR Part 200. Cost sharing, match, program income, revision of budget and program plans, fixed amount subawards, compensation for personal services, compensation fringe benefits, equipment and other capital expenditures, fines, penalties, damages, and other settlements, fundraising and investment management costs, goods or services for personal use, insurance and indemnification, organization costs, pre-award costs, rearrangement and reconversion costs, and travel costs. In addition to all the rules we just reviewed, it is also important to keep in mind two factors when proposing or reviewing a post-award modification: the period of performance and the scope of the award. Both of these factors impact the award. The period of performance provides the start and end of the award, as well as the period during which applicable costs may be incurred. The award scope of work helps frame what costs could be allowable during that period. Shifting from more general and administrative requirements for post-award administration, let's start looking at some of the items our FTA awards use to procure. Starting to look at Chapter 4 in Circular 5010 on property, let's keep these three items in mind. Title. Title to federally assisted property acquired under an award is a conditional title the recipient holds. This conditional title requires that it be used for FTA authorized purposes during its useful life, that the recipient not encumber the property without prior approval, and that the property is used and disposed of in accordance with the requirements for equipment, real property, and supplies. There are two types of property, real and personal. Real property is land, and personal property is anything other than real property. FMV, or fair market value. Fair market value is the most probable price that the project property would bring in a competitive and open market. 5010's revision include a new section to Chapter 4 that highlights some general property requirements that moved from other parts of the prior version or from the program circulars. One item that we should remember is that recipients may use in-kind contributions of real property, equipment, and supplies as part of the non-federal share, so long as the item donated is needed to complete the award's scope of work and meets the general allowability criteria established in the cost principles under 2 CFR Part 200. Additional specific information was also presented in Session 1 of this series. Another important concept is useful life. Useful life is the minimum acceptable period a capital asset purchased with FTA funds must be used in service prior to being replaced or removed from service. While the useful life of land is indefinite, real property improvements on land, such as construction, buildings, and other fixtures, may have a minimum useful life similar to personal property. The use of an asset beyond its minimal useful life does not extinguish its federal interest or the obligation to use and dispose of property in compliance with federal requirements. The circular now includes this chart to relay useful information. If an item is not included in the chart, then an estimated useful life should be included in the award based on independent evaluation, Internal Revenue Service guidelines, industry standards, recipient experience, the recipient's independent auditor who needs to provide his or her concurrence that the useful life assigned to the property is reasonable for depreciation purposes, and/or proven useful life developed at a federal test facility. We have some general concepts. Let's take a look at federally assisted real property, land, buildings, and related improvements. There are two significant changes regarding real property: the revised Real Property Status Report and revisions under the Uniform Act. The Real Property Status Report replaces the Real Property Inventory to satisfy government requirements of 2 CFR 200.330 for real property acquired with or improved with FTA funds across the totality of the recipient's federal awards. The Uniform Act provides the requirements that govern the acquisition, use, or disposition of real property purchased with federal assistance. The Federal Highway Administration, otherwise known as FHWA, published revisions to US DOT's implementing rule on the Uniform Act in early May 2024. These provide important protections and assistance for people affected by federally funded projects government-wide. Because the changes to real property may require a shift among our recipients, let's spend a minute on the requirements. Recipients must maintain adequate records on the status of real property in which the federal government retains an interest and submit a real property status report to FTA every 3 years, which will be reviewed as part of the oversight process. These requirements are placed on all FTA-assisted real property, regardless of the date it was acquired or improved. Updates to legislative revisions, the transfer of assets for affordable housing now permits transfers to nonprofit organizations for transit-oriented development that includes affordable housing, with no obligation to reimburse FTA for the federal interest under certain conditions. Additionally, FTA reviewed and updated language related to incidental and shared use. These are distinguishable items. Incidental use is the limited non-transit use of project property that does not conflict with the original authorized purpose of the project property or the recipient's ability to maintain satisfactory continuing control. Shared use is when an entity separate from the recipient occupies part of a facility or shares the use of equipment, including rolling stock, and pays for its pro rata share of the construction, maintenance, acquisition, or operations costs as applicable. Shared uses should be declared at the time of award to ensure the proper allocation and eligibility of costs in the award. So now, I would like to thank you for your time and attention. I would like to hand off